Bernie, Sid, Alexa. The only three names that matter. Bernie and Sid in the morning.
Now on Echo devices.
77 WABC.
Rich Lowry, every Monday morning at this time, editor, National Review. See him often with our good buddy Chuck Todd, Meet the Press, all over television. Why? Because he's brilliant. His new column is out, the Post-Liberal Dead End. You can read a lot of his stuff. It's syndicated. New York Post, Salt Lake City Tribune, all over the country. And we love having him on Mondays. Rich Lowry, welcome back to the Bernie and Sid Show. How are you, pal?
Good. How's it going?
Good. So listen, what is the real story here? We have you here because you know the truth. You are you're the man. So one story says that Donald Trump, if Mexico's Congress does not get this deal ratified, the immigration and security deal put together between U.S. and Mexico, that he is ready to continue tariffs, which would start at 5% this month and even skyrocket as high as 25% come October. But there's another story out there that says, listen, forgetting about Donald Trump and his tariffs, the truth is this deal was in place months ago, and it was not Donald Trump threatening with tariffs that got this deal done. What's the truth?
I'm still trying to get to the ground truth of how important this is, but I think even if all this had been agreed to earlier, getting Mexico actually to say it publicly and commit to it publicly is a big deal. And my understanding from talking to people over the weekend, Mexico is not quite where they are now in the prior discussions. There's this deal where we can take the migrants and send them back to Mexico while their asylum claims are adjudicated. That had been in place before, but Mexico had limited the numbers, limited the places, limited the kind of migrants they would take. They really wanted single adults, not the family units. And now Mexico's saying publicly, we're going to take everyone. So if that's true, it means the only limit here is our capacity to turn the migrants back to Mexico, which requires some logistics and isn't as easy as it sounds. But if that's true, that's potentially a big deal. And I think the threat probably helped get Mexico to sign on the dotted line.
No doubt, Rich Lowry, and of course the New York Times, they disagree with that assessment. They say, yeah, it was in place a long time ago, but remember, the New York Times is the paper that censored the Holocaust, censors Hamas shooting rockets into Israel, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the Wall Street Journal, which is simpatico with your National Review, and they dislike tariffs, they tweeted this. In 1 week, Trump got Mexico to agree to two things, which were unlikely. Militarize Mexico's crackdown on migrants by deploying National Guard troops and expanding the Remain in Mexico plan for asylum seekers. I tend to believe the Wall Street Journal over the New York Times.
Yeah, and as someone in the administration was saying to me yesterday, well, look, if this was already in place, why weren't we doing it? You know, what was stopping us? We're really motivated to do this. So if it was already there, we would have been doing it. So obviously it wasn't there. Now, I think it would have been, it's kind of a typical Trumpian threat. If he actually had to carry through on it, it would have been chaotic and problematic, and he probably would have had a party revolt. So it was a risk, but he appears to have gotten significant progress. We'll see, whether Mexico follows through and whether there's any backsliding. But it's definitely progress, and a lot of us, I was skeptical of this tactic. I wasn't totally dismissive that it would work, but was skeptical. But this seems to be one where he's defied his critics and actually made progress on the basis of shooting off and threatening people.
Rich, last time I saw a crowd like this was a decade ago when and I do say you're because you're a big-time fan, your New York Yankees walked down the Canyon of Heroes, I should say paraded down the Canyon of Heroes after beating the Philadelphia Phillies and winning the World Series. That's what it looked like in Hong Kong yesterday. How about that crowd?
Yeah, no, amazing. And, this is, we think a lot about China and what a threat it is and how much more powerful it's gotten, which is all true. But the ultimate weakness of that regime is it's not popular, and if it were ever to lift its boot off the necks of the Chinese people, you would see what you had in Hong Kong all over mainland China, and that government would fall. So it's a really notable event.
Yeah, it certainly is. One that I think they're not going to win, really, when they're dealing with China. But Rich Lowry, as good as you do, you just bounce all over the place. So we'll go back now to Iowa. and the Democratic race. All these people got together. De Blasio was there, who didn't even show up in any of the polls. But the polling in Iowa shows Biden 24%, down from 32, by the way, and Buttigieg, Bernie, and Warren in the mid-teens, and then the rest of the pack. But so Biden is losing some steam, and he didn't even show up at this thing, which is the second event where they all got together and didn't show up. What do you think his strategy is?
Well, it's a typical front-runner strategy where you don't campaign very hard and you don't have a very strong message, and you just say, I'm the electable guy. And that had a lot of appeal out of the gate. We might see here some of the limits of it. I would say if it were 10 days before Iowa and that was the polling outcome and our Joe Biden, I'd feel pretty good, but I wouldn't feel that confident because things can change so quickly, people can surge so quickly, that an 8-point lead can be erased overnight in Iowa. So he's not in a particularly formidable position. It's better to lead than to not, but also his supporters are less set or less enthusiastic about him than the other candidates. So he's got a real problem in Iowa, and it may herald broader problems for him as well. One thing I'm amazed, though, by all these state polls, Democrats out there and the rest of the country, they hate de Blasio, and they're not even New Yorkers. They don't even know why they should hate him, but they instinctively hate him.
That's great. He wasn't here yesterday at the Puerto Rican Day Parade. He caught some heat for that. Rich Lowry, editor, National Review. So where are we with Bill Barr? Is he going to be held in contempt this week and investigate the investigators? What's going on with Bill Barr?
Well, I think, the Democrats have made him the scapegoat. He's done nothing wrong. They may hold him in contempt as sort of a placeholder for impeachment. Pelosi's still stopping them from impeaching, so they feel as though they have to do something. This is something to do. And then we'll see. We're going to get an IG report eventually, I would think sooner rather than later. And Barr's investigating as well. So we'll hear more about the genesis of this investigation pretty soon, I think.
And how about this stunt today, Rich Lowry? The Democrats, Nadler, he's going to actually have this Watergate rat, this slimy professional Trump hater from CNN, John Dean, testify. I mean, what's the point of that?
Yeah, it's like, okay, they're going to get to the bottom of the Watergate cover-up, with this hearing with John Dean.
Really?
White House counsel from the Nixon years. And Dean will say Trump's horrible and he did terrible things, but it's not going to add, obviously, to any of the store of information we already have available.
So it's just, it's just for show. Everything is just for show, really, at this point, right?
Yeah, and I mean, this is the thing. They got all the information. Trump and the White House basically cooperated with the Mueller investigation, gave Mueller everything he asked for and wanted, and Mueller writes it in the public report that everyone can read, so you can decide on the basis of that. And since they don't want to do that, they have to have these kind of show trials.
All right, let's end this on a light note. Again, Rich Lowry went to Virginia, and your alumni, your college basketball team, won the championship this year. And we all know, of course, that you're a diehard New York Yankee fan. We all know that, from Chuck Todd to President Donald Trump. So it's a very easy question. Who is Rich Lowry's favorite Yankee? Now, the generation around your time, everybody loved Mickey Mantle. Even Jason Giambi wore number 25 for the Yanks to equal the number 7. But whether you're Mike Francesa or my brother-in-law, you love Mickey Mantle. Who's Rich Lowry's favorite Yankee?
Well, I'm a little younger than that generation. I'm a Donnie baseball guy.
Don Mattingly.
Oh, yeah. I loved everything about Mattingly.
Well, you didn't love the fact that he never won.
Ouch.
Well, there was that. He had a heck of a series against the Mariners in 1995, although it ended in tears.
Yes.
But I would imitate his swing. I love the eye black. I love the line drives. I loved everything. I love that.
Wow.
What's it, eight games in a row with home runs?
Yes.
And that same year he had all the grand slams. He's such a clutch hitter and such a pro.
Do you find yourself now rooting for the Miami Marlins because he's the manager?
No.
Sorry.
I don't go that far.
No, that's not happening. Hey, Rich Lowry, you're great, man. Always great. Rich Lowry, editor of the National Review. His columns all over the place, syndicated nationally. Rich, we love you. We thank you very much.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, Rich, have a good week. We'll take a short break talking about Don Mattingly and the Yankees. Yankees and Mets in the Bronx later on tonight. And can the Toronto Raptors give Canada their very first ever NBA championship? We'll know later on tonight. The Shrewsbury Bicycle Blitz is next.